I still remember that rainy afternoon. The sky was gray, heavy with clouds, and the streets were almost empty. People were rushing home, trying to stay dry. But I was just sitting there, on an old wooden bench at the park, without an umbrella. I didn't care about getting wet. I had other things on my mind. My name is Arif. I grew up in a small town where everyone knew each other. Life was slow, peaceful, and maybe a little boring. But I liked it that way. I lived with my parents and my younger sister, Mira. We didn't have much, but we had each other. That was enough. When I was a child, I used to dream big. I wanted to travel, write books, meet people from around the world. But dreams are strange things. Sometimes life makes you put them on a shelf. That's what happened to me. Everything changed the year my father lost his job. I was just 16. We suddenly had no money. My mother started working at a sewing shop. I had to leave school to help. I found work at a tea stall. I remember the smell of boiling milk and cardamom, the sound of people talking, the tired faces of the workers who came in every day. I would wipe tables and serve tea, but I always kept a small notebook in my pocket. Every time I had a free moment, I wrote. Short stories, poems, my thoughts. It was the only way I could still hold on to my dream. One evening, when I was closing the stall, a man in a suit came in. He looked tired and sad. I gave him tea and noticed he kept looking at my notebook. "Are you a writer?" he asked. I laughed. "No, sir. I just like to write." "Can I read something?" he said. I hesitated but handed him a page. It was a short story about a boy who wanted to fly. When he finished, he looked at me and said, "You are a writer. Don't stop." That man never came back, but his words stayed with me for years. Every time I felt like giving up, I remembered him. Life continued. I worked, helped at home, took care of Mira when she got sick. I didn't have time to think about myself. I got older, and so did my dreams. But I never stopped writing. When I turned 22, Mira passed away. She had a heart condition. We couldn't afford the surgery in time. I sat beside her bed, holding her hand, telling her stories I had written, stories about places she would never see. She smiled, even in pain, and said, "One day, you'll tell the world." After she was gone, something in me changed. I couldn't bear to stay in that town. I packed a small bag, took my notebook, and left. I went to the city, hoping to find work and maybe, just maybe, a chance to do something with my writing. The city was loud, fast, and unforgiving. I slept on train station benches, ate only when I earned something, and tried to keep my hope alive. Then one day, I saw a sign, "Part-time assistant wanted, bookstore." I went in and asked. The owner, an old man with glasses, looked me up and down. "Do you read?" he asked. "Everything I can," I said. He smiled. "Come in." Working at the bookstore was like living in a dream. I could read in my free time. I read Dickens, Hemingway, Tagore, Ruskin Bond. I learned English little by little. I copied words, looked them up in a dictionary, and used them in my notebook. Slowly, my stories changed. My language improved. But more than that, I grew. I saw the world through the pages of books. One afternoon, a young woman came into the store. She looked curious, picking up titles, flipping pages, asking questions. I helped her find a novel. She came back the next week. Then again. Her name was Ria. We became friends. She was a college student, studying literature. When she learned that I wrote stories, she asked to read them. I was nervous, but I gave her my notebook. The next day, she hugged me. "Why aren't you published?" she asked. I laughed again. "People like me don't get published." "That's nonsense," she said. "Your words matter. Your stories can touch hearts." With her help, I typed out one of my stories, corrected my grammar, and sent it to a local magazine. A month later, I received an email, "Your story has been accepted for publication." I didn't believe it at first. I read that email 10 times. Then I cried. That small story, just 1,000 words, changed my life. More people started reading my work. I wrote more, submitted more. I even started a blog. One of my stories went viral. A publisher contacted me. I wrote a book. It didn't make me rich, but it made me proud. Now, I teach young people how to write. I tell them, it's okay to start small. It's okay to fail. What matters is that you don't stop. Ria and I stayed in touch. She helped me edit my book and cheered me on through every rejection and every small success. One day, after a book reading event, she came up to me and said, "You know, I think Mira would be so proud of you." Her words hit me deeply. I realized then that it was time to go back to my hometown. Not just to visit, but to share what I had learned. I returned after nearly 5 years. The tea stall was still there. The streets looked smaller. Some faces had changed, some were missing, but the spirit of the place remained. I met the new school principal and offered to give a talk to the students. Standing in front of those curious young faces, I told them my story. I told them about dreams, struggles, and never giving up. I told them about Mira, about the bench in the rain, about the man who believed in me. And when I finished, there was silence, the good kind. The kind that means something was felt deeply. Afterward, a small boy came up to me, holding a piece of paper. "I wrote this," he said shyly. "Will you read it?" I smiled. Of course. It reminded me of myself. It reminded me why stories matter. Back in the city, I started a free writing club. Kids from poor backgrounds joined. We read, wrote, shared. Some of them had never read a full story before. Now they were writing their own. One of them, a girl named Anya, wrote a story that won a citywide competition. When she ran up to me with the certificate, tears in her eyes, I felt the same joy I had when I saw my first publication. Years passed. I published more books. I was invited to speak in different cities. I got a message from a university abroad, asking me to share my journey. I stood there, halfway across the world, telling my story in English, the language I once struggled to understand. And through it all, I kept going back to that bench in the park. Because that bench wasn't just a place. It was a symbol. Of pain, of hope, of dreams. And every time it rained, I sat there, closed my eyes, and whispered, "Thank you. Thank you, life. Thank you, Mira. Thank you, words." Because even though life was hard, it taught me how to dream.